The Blueprint for BlackPower by Dr. Amos and Wilson, Chapter 1, What is Power? The definitions of power are various and conflicting. This is due mainly to the multifarious nature of power itself, rather than due to its unreality or ephemeral spirit. Few, if any of us, doubt the reality of power and the tangible effects its application engenders. Our confusion as to its exact definition more likely flows from the fact that power, depending on context and circumstance, assumes ubiquitous shapes and forms, varying degrees of transparency and visibility. Power is a chameleon. It takes on the texture of its environment. It is not our purpose here to untangle the web of power definitions. It is not necessary for us to do so. However, a review of a number of definitions and of several forms of power will provide an intuitive understanding of its essential meaning, which is all that is necessary to our mission. Power comes with being, with interactive existence, with being alive. It is the essence of life and the motive force of growth and development and of the adaptability of living things to environmental changes and demands. Power refers to the ability to do, the ability to be, the ability to prevail. Beingness and aliveness originate with power. To be powerless is to be willless, impotent, and lifeless, without effect or influence, to be nothing, of no account. Thus we concur with Rollo May when he contends that, quote, power is essential for all living things. Man in particular, cast on this barren crust of earth eons ago with the hope and the requirement that he survive, finds he must use power and confront opposing forces at every point in his struggle with the earth and with his fellows, end quote. The unimpeded intentionality of living systems, including especially human beings, is self-realization and self-actualization, the fulfillment of genetic potential or possibilities. This intentionality must be empowered to be realized. Thus, to paraphrase Friedrich Nietzsche, wherever we find the will to live, there we find the will to power. Power is essential to our existence and the most influential factor in determining our quality of life. As Wartenberg contends, quote, power is one of the central phenomena of human social life, end quote. And as Parenti argues, quote, all sorts of interpersonal, and we may add intergroup, relationships can be seen as involving power, including between lovers or between parents and child, end quote. Power. There is no escaping its presence in some form. There is no escaping its use by others to influence in some form our persons, our minds, and behavior, and our own use of it to influence the persons, minds, and behavior of others. We deny the ubiquity of power to our peril. It does not vanish from reality or lose its influence by our refusal to acknowledge its existence. Therefore, we are behooved to recognize its permanent reality and make the best of it, control it, and use it to good purpose. Power, in and of itself, quote, can be both a detrimental and a beneficial aspect of social relationships, end quote, and can be made to play, quote, the negative as well as the positive role in the constitution of human social life, end quote, Wartenberg. Power can be utilized to achieve personal, social, political, and material ends if it is appropriately developed, organized, and applied. The question of whether power is beneficial or harmful can only be answered in regard to the specific use to which it is put in a particular situation. Many in our audience will find this discussion of power disturbing or diseasing. Having been victimized by the abuse and misuse of power, Often crushed by the powers that be, the reader who identifies himself as among the powerless or as a member of a relatively powerless group, example, an African American, will be the more perturbed by our discussion. The oppressed and downtrodden, having been traumatized by the abuse of power by their powerful oppressors, often come to perceive power itself as inherently evil, as by nature corrupting, and therefore as something to be eschewed, denied, and renounced. The pursuit of power is viewed as unworthy of virtuous persons, and the desire to possess it as sinful. Therefore, many among the powerless and poor feel compelled to find in their powerlessness and poverty the emblematic signs of their godliness and redemptive salvation. How convenient a precept for rationalizing and maintaining the power of the haves over the have-nots. As a result of their ideological manipulation by the powerful and their own reactionary misperception of reality, the poor and powerless have been made to perceive the pursuit, possession, and application of power in their own behalf as unbecoming to themselves. This is even more the case when, through their naive acceptance of the self-serving deceptive propaganda perpetrated by the powers that be, their own reactionary self-negation, and their nursing of their internalized inferiority complexes, the poor huddled masses perceive the possession and exercise of power as the inherent and exclusive prerogative of the ruling classes or races. There are many blacks who have been convinced by racist propaganda that supreme power is divinely deeded to dominant whites. They therefore suffer anxiety attacks and feel as if they are blasphemously rebelling against God Himself if they, even for a moment, seriously dare consider conspiring to wrest power from the hands of their oppressors. More unfortunate than this sorely mistaken theological perception is the self-abnegating perception by many blacks that they are inherently incapable of mounting a successful campaign against oppressive white power and therefore must sulkily seek the least onerous accommodations to it. This perception of and orientation toward power on the part of African peoples is but a prescription for the unending subordination, exploitation, and ultimately, when it is convenient to the purposes of their oppressors, their genocidal demise. Therefore, if they are to survive and prosper in freedom, then like it or not, African peoples must come to terms with power. We must be ever conscious of the fact that, quote, the establishment, whatever rewards it gives us, will also, if necessary to maintain its control, kill us, end quote.